The frozen moment. In a small town in the heart of the United States, a young black woman named Maya lived in the shadows of a seemingly peaceful community. She had recently moved there, hoping for a fresh start. Working as a social worker, Maya had a calm, humble demeanor that helped her build rapport with everyone she met until one night, everything changed. It was late, and Maya was walking home from her late shift when she passed by a group of local men. They were known in the area for their racist tendencies, often targeting minorities with threats, harassment, and insults. Tonight, however, they seemed to be looking for trouble. "Where do you think you're going, sweetheart?" one of them sneered, stepping forward. Maya didn't flinch. She had dealt with this before, but tonight felt different. There was an intensity in the air, a sense of something about to break. The men surrounded her, laughing as they began to taunt her, calling her all kinds of derogatory names. They made cruel jokes about her race and heritage, each word more venomous than the last. But Maya stood firm. "Leave me alone," she said calmly, her voice steady. One of them, a taller man named Luke, smirked and stepped closer. "What are you going to do about it?" he mocked, raising his hands as if to provoke her. Maya didn't respond, but something inside her stirred. There was an energy around her, an awareness of the situation unlike any before. It felt like time itself had slowed down. In that instant, Maya's eyes began to glow, a soft light emanating from them, as if drawn from some deeper well within her. The men, initially unaware of what was happening, suddenly froze. Their faces twisted in confusion as their eyes locked on her, and a strange sensation washed over them, a feeling of inexplicable awe. Luke's smirk faltered, and his voice cracked. What are you?" Maya didn't answer right away. Instead, she held his gaze, allowing the weight of her presence to seep into the space between them. Her identity wasn't just about race. It wasn't just about being black. There was something far older, something that had been buried in her family's lineage for generations. A power passed down in secret, a power to challenge hate, to shift the balance when injustice reared its ugly head. "I am Maya," she finally said. "And you've crossed a line that you will never be able to erase." The men looked at each other, their once confident postures now wavering as a cold sweat broke out across their foreheads. They couldn't move, couldn't speak. It was as though time itself had gripped them in its unyielding clutch. The air around them was thick with an unspoken realization they were not in control anymore. Luke tried to step back, but his legs wouldn't obey. "What are you doing to us?" he stammered, his voice filled with panic. Maya took a slow step forward, her eyes still glowing faintly. "I am the result of centuries of struggle, of survival. I am the voice of the many who fought, who stood tall against fear and hate. You see me as an enemy because of the color of my skin, but you do not understand the strength that comes from those who've been oppressed. This moment is a reminder that hate can never stand unchallenged." The gang members, still frozen in place, could only tremble. A few whispered apologies, their words barely audible. They realized, perhaps for the first time, the weight of their own actions, the irreparable damage their words and hatred had caused. Not just to Maya, but to everyone who had ever faced prejudice. Maya paused, her gaze softening as she watched the terror and regret flicker across their faces. The power she wielded wasn't for vengeance, but for understanding. Slowly, she stepped back, allowing the light in her eyes to dim. "You have the power to change," she said softly. "Don't let this be the only lesson you ever learn." In a blink, the men were released from the invisible hold. They stumbled, shocked, breathing heavily as though they had just awoken from a nightmare. Without another word, Maya turned and walked away, her footsteps steady and unyielding. Behind her, the men stood in stunned silence, forever altered by the encounter. They knew that they could never forget the woman who had stood before them, her quiet strength reverberating in their minds long after she disappeared into the night. And from that day forward, their behavior changed. The town, too, began to see its own reflection more clearly. Maya's legacy wasn't one of power and fear, but of understanding and transformation. The frozen moment had shifted something deep within them, a lesson learned that would echo for generations.